Good evening and welcome to our monthly online series, Words for Palestine. My name is Liwa Zinati and I'm the curator of public programming at the Arab American National Museum, which sits on the colonized land of the Anishinaabe peoples and is now known as Dearborn. The Arab American National Museum, located in the region with the highest concentration of Arab Americans in the nation, is the first and only museum of its kind in the US devoted to recording the Arab American experience. April is Arab American Heritage Month and National Poetry Month. And this month's Words for Palestine is titled In Translation and invites writers whose work highlights the necessary voices of artists from the Arab world whose essential work is not created in English. This year, we as a museum celebrate our 20th anniversary. We insist on saying celebrating despite the unspeakable horrors and genocide because we celebrate in the conviction that our stories and memories and joy not only matter, but will persist and outlive our enemies' lunacy and theft. And as we continue to center our collective liberation, we continue to uplift artists whose work is rooted in that same core belief. Words matter, and those who continue to annihilate us know this all too well, which is why the work of writers and poets is even more imperative, in any language, everywhere. To dismantle distorted mainstream narratives, to counter the relentless silencing and erasure, and to uphold truth and justice under these colonial systems of harm. Words for Palestine also aims to raise funds for PCRF and Palestine Legal, which is dedicated to protecting the civil and constitutional rights of anyone who speaks out for Palestinian liberation in the US. So please feel free to donate to any or both of these necessary organizations. You'll find the QR code up in the screen in the corner. Before I introduce our first reader, I'd like to thank our partners, Misna Rawi Palestine Rights, and Nadwa Free Thinking Society, and Sukun, as well as the four artists whom you'll hear from tonight. I'd also like to invite our audience to drop any questions that they have in the chat, and so that we can share them at the end of the reading. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first reader, Wiam Al-Tamimi. Wiam Al-Tamimi is an Egyptian writer, translator, editor, and wanderer. She has spent the last 20 years moving between different cultures and communities across the Middle East, Europe, Southeast Asia, and North America. Her work has appeared or is forthcoming in publications such as Granta, the Paris Review, Plowshares, Agni, Literary Hub, and others. She has received fellowships, grants, and residencies from Art OMI, the Banff Center for the Arts, Academy Schloss Solitude, the Mufradat Foundation, and the Berlin Senate. She won the 2011 Harville Secker Translation Prize, was a finalist for the 2023 This Quiet International Prize, and was shortlisted for the 2024 First Pages Prize. Her work also received a Pushcart Prize nomination in 2024 and was a runner-up for the 2025 Jules Shemedzi Prize. She's currently based in Berlin, but I know that she is now in Cairo, Egypt. Welcome, Wiam. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you very well. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to the organizers and to the Arab American National Museum and to everyone who's here tonight. And I'm so glad that you talked about joy and life despite everything, because this for me has been a big lesson in the last year. About a year ago, I started working with a group of writers in Gaza. I've been trying to support them in different ways, applying for grants on their behalf, translating their work, and so on. And some of them have also become dear friends. And I would love to take the opportunity tonight to talk a little bit about two of them and share their work with you. And they've become a very important part of my life, and they're amazing human beings as well as amazing writers. So the first writer is Nasir Rabah. Some of you might already know his work. He's a poet and a novelist. He's published 7 poetry collections now, I believe, and 2 novels. He was born in 1963 in Gaza, and he still lives there now with his 5 children. They're adults now, all of them, and his wife. His daughter is actually also a poet, a very good poet, an emerging poet called Fahad Rabah. And actually, his first book in English translation was published just this week. So I want to kind of take tonight to celebrate that a little bit and share with you one of his poems. And I would also love to share the screen for a moment to show you the cover of his book. So it's called Gaza. The poem said it's peace. It was published just 2 days ago by City Lights, and it's translated by Emil Alkalai, Emna Zal, and Khaled El-Helli. It's really a beautiful book. I really would urge you to buy a copy. It's really a labor of love, and yeah, the reviews are really, there are lots of glowing reviews, as you'll see on the page, and yeah, his work is very, very special. I'm really glad to see that it's beginning to get the recognition it deserves. You can also find a lot of the poems in lots of like important literary magazines like The New Yorker and Harper's and Poetry Magazine and many others. I'll link to some of his work also in the chat, and also to this link to buy his book or to look at it if you are interested. So the poem I'll read with you today is not actually in the book. It's a translation of mine, of one of Nasser's poems. And this poem is in the current issue of the Paris Review, in the spring issue. And it's called The War is Over. The War is Over, Nasser Rabah, translated by Wi'am Tamimi. The war is over. I examine my body, my head, fingers, arms. It's all there, as though it all slipped back just now into place. The war is over. I gaze up at the sky. I've missed the birds, the clouds, anything but airplanes. The war is over. The broom sweeps away the dust, shards of glass, the screws of the broken door. It sweeps away the stones of the smashed walls, splinters of gold-rimmed tea glasses, the frames of family photographs, children's toys, the dinner plates, all swept away and heaped up somewhere in my heart. The war is over. My mother arrives, apologetic. There's nowhere to receive you, she says. The graves are filled to the brim. The war is over. I shield my head with my hands and run. It's not raining or too sunny, and I'm not afraid. I've just become used to running this way. The war is over. I take bread, a lot of bread, a loaf for each friend, and head to the graveyard. The war is over. I think about going to sleep. My friends who have left on their journey all come back to spend the evening with me. Alone, I drink my tea. The war is over. The children go back to their schools and find them inhabited by the displaced. The workers head back to the factory and find a pile of rubble in its wake. The doctors return to the hospital and find it riddled with disease. Everyone is afraid to go back home for fear they will find it gone. The war is over. The birds who have seen everything, everything, go on singing. The soldiers also continue to sing. The war is over. The builders come. They build doors with archways. The ceilings are high. The survivors are taller than they were before. And the tanks roll into the courts of justice, heads bowed. The war is over. Thousands of children on the balconies, raining gifts down on the passers-by. I eat clothes, colored shoes, books they no longer need, dead smiles, their mother's tears, while the passers-by, a river of blood, celebrate the end of the war. The war is over. I turn off the television and my phone at last and go to sleep. In my nightmares, another war begins. Yeah, I really love those lines. I just want to read them one more time about the builders come. They build doors with archways. The ceilings are high. The survivors are taller than they were before. And the tanks roll into the courts of justice, heads bowed. I really hope and wish and believe that we will see this day. This is not a very typical poem for Nasser. Actually, I would say that it's much simpler than his usual poetry. It's kind of deceptively simple. Yeah, but this is one thing I really love about him as a human being and him as a writer, that he finds so much beauty and so much life even in this moment of destruction and horror. The second writer I wanted to share with you today is Mohammed al-Zaqzouk. He also lives in Gaza. He's younger than Nasser. Nasser is 62. Mohammed al-Zaqzouk is in his 30s. Before the genocide, he published two children's books and one poetry collection. And at the moment, he's writing mostly nonfiction. He's actually worked on a book, and that's almost finished, about the genocide. And it's being translated by the brilliant, award-winning translator Catherine Hall. And Adana Shibli is helping to edit it. So please keep an eye out for that as well. I think we'll hear publication news about that soon. And I've also I've linked in the chat, at the top of the chat, to his last, one of his latest pieces in the New York Review of Books. And I've also linked to his GoFundMe campaign. So if you're able to make a donation, I think he and his family are in great need of that at the moment, and it would really help enormously. I'm going to read a little. I wanted to share with you actually a work in progress. This is an essay that Zaqzouk wrote and that I'm currently translating, and it's for me it was really eye-opening to read this essay, because it's basically about his first time leaving Gaza ever. He was 31 and he'd never left. He'd always lived in Gaza. He'd never stepped outside, and it really opened my eyes to what it means to live in a place where a small place that you've been all your life and you really cannot leave. What it really means to live in Gaza and under siege. So I wanted to share with you a little bit of this essay, the first section, so you get a little taste of Zaqzouk's writing and his work, and this essay that has left an impression on me as well. It's also a very interesting essay because his first time leaving Gaza was actually to go to an event in Siwa, which is a tiny oasis in the far west of Egypt that was until very recently also very cut off. So he went from one kind of isolated place to another isolated place, and that's also a really interesting, a really interesting aspect of this essay. So the essay is called "The Crossing." Let me just check the time. Okay. So "The Crossing." Mohammed al-Zaqzouk. I'm sorry, I pronounced it in the Egyptian way for a moment, al-Zaqzouk, but his name is Mohammed al-Zaqzouk. The essay is called "The Crossing" and it's translated by me and Tamim. 1. I couldn't sleep that night. I was due to travel the next day, and I found myself riddled with anxiety, relentless questions. What if I'm not allowed to travel? What if I don't get along with the people in Cairo, the ones I would be meeting for the first time and who had been invited, like me, to participate in this event? Would the complexes of Gaza obscure my sense of wonder and enjoyment, plunge me into silence, hesitation, fear? What does the world look like? What is the world? And what is Gaza? I had been trapped in it for all of the 31 years of my life and had not left once. At 6 a.m., the car set off towards the Rafah border crossing. Gaza was asleep, the streets completely deserted. In my memory of this pale, drowsy scene, what stands out most clearly is the Rafah crossing, not just the crossing itself, but also the innumerable stories about it that people have always shared. For me that day, it was a portal of questions, a gateway to all the emotions I was about to experience, to an other that had always been far away, obscured, and who would, in just a few hours, become possible, available, and so close that we would be able to interact, to converse. We were all gathered at the border now, Gazans who had been living under siege, sealed away from the rest of the world. We were still unsure about whether we would really be allowed through the Egyptian border terminal on the other side to cross over into the world. We were anxious, pessimistic, apprehensive for no clear reason, bored and anticipating long hours of waiting. I was looking into people's faces, furtively listening to all their stories and experiences, all the advice they were offering. Keep an eye on the bag that has your passport and money. Take care of your cell phone so you can stay in touch with everyone. No, they don't let power banks in. Don't get bored yet. Be patient. There's still a lot of waiting to come. Everyone was talking at once, but it all faded away when it was time to cross. Suddenly, everything seemed filled with pleasure, felt real and possible and fast and close all at once. We were in the Egyptian terminal now. Egypt was coming closer, as was the world. As for Gaza, it was starting to recede, slowly growing smaller and smaller, like a finch in a huge cypress tree, like a tiny fish disappearing between the crevices of rocks. Two, the car made its way to Cairo through the night, piercing through a desert so vast that my eyes could not see the end of it. The desert seemed limitless, just as the sea in Gaza had always appeared limitless, unfathomable. It evoked the same sense of reverence in me, a sensation of being stripped down, disoriented. The car kept moving, the road was as long as it looked. The longer the car drove through the Sinai Desert, the vaster the world appeared. The world is vast, the distances immense. That's how we picture it in Gaza, like a prisoner imagining the world outside their cell. But when I first experienced the sense of scale, my mind could not fathom it. Something inside me was refusing to believe that the car could keep driving for so long. This road must end. A road cannot go on and on like this. And my first experience of distance would be an extreme one. Our journey would take us through the Sinai Desert and the Western Desert towards the oasis of Siwa in the far west of Egypt, near the border with Libya. A trip that lasted over 17 hours, interrupted only by short breaks. It was only then that I realized the real size of Gaza. Gaza, which is as small as a closed fist. Gaza, which can be traversed from north to south in a single hour. Gaza, where I feel like I know every one of its 2 million inhabitants, where every face feels familiar. Gaza was as small as a family home, throwing us all together in a very particular context, so it seemed as though we all knew each other. But now I was experiencing the kinds of distances that make the chances of running into someone slim. Here was the world, a world where people can wander around aimlessly, where people can choose to go down different paths, where someone could get lost. Thank you, everyone. I think my time is up, right? Maybe someone from the Rewa, can you tell me in the chat if I think this is it, right? That was 15 minutes. Thank you so much. Thank you all for having me, and I look forward to the other readers.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you, bringing Hamad al-Zakzouk and Nasser Rabah into the space and to just, translate their work. It's really important to bring, Gaza poets who are, in Gaza and just to just keep highlighting their necessary voices. So thank you for all the work that you do.
Thank you.
Just want to remind everybody that we're also raising funds for PCRF and Palestine Legal. You'll find the codes, you'll find the QR codes in the corner of the screen, as well as the links in the chat on YouTube. I'd like to invite our next reader, Khalid Rajah. Khalid Rajah is a writer and literary translator from Ba'alin, Lebanon. His essays and translations have appeared in Arab Lit, Vagabond City, 91st Meridian, and the Michigan Quarterly Review. He holds an MFA in literary translation from the University of Iowa, where he is pursuing a PhD. Welcome, Khalid.
Hi, Rewa. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. And thank you for the great work you do with these readings. I would like to read a couple of my translations tonight. First of which is a short story by Fakhri Qawar. Fakhri Qawar was a Jordanian journalist, one of the first comedy scriptwriters for Arab TV and radio, a member of parliament, and a very prolific short story writer. In fact, he is called the father of the Jordanian short story. And his stories are known for their unique tragicomic nature and their satirical dissection of the various forces of oppression that we live under as Arabs, whether it's Zionism or the patriarchy or capitalism or the political repression of our own reactionary governments. He was a staunch advocate for Palestine his whole life, more precisely since he was 11 years old, when a school teacher outside his school in Fhais pointed out the farmhands that he would see and told him that, those people working the land have no land of their own because they were expelled by the Zionists. And he tells us in his memoir, Layali al-Uns, that evening he went home and he cried, and he felt like something in him had broken. And he also tells us in his memoirs that in 1968, he would take up arms with a Palestinian resistance organization that he does not name. And he would wear a mask, carry a gun, set up roadblocks, and demand ID on the streets of Az-Zar'a. But he says that he was tasked with catching Zionist agents when he had never fired a gun in his life and could not even catch a bird or a cat. And so he realizes conveniently around the time that King Hussein's army was expelling Palestinian fighters after 1970, he realizes that he is more useful to the cause with a pen. And so he hangs up his guns and he goes on to write over 11,000 articles for Arab press, 10 collections of short stories, 3 novels, some plays. He was incredibly prolific. So the story I will read to you is from a 1989 collection called Ayyub al-Falastini. This translation appeared in the fall 24 issue of the Michigan Quarterly Review. And the story is called A Bird in My House. At night, a very late hour of the night, I heard a knock on the door. I opened it to find a weary-looking man, sick and corpse-like. He asked for a glass of water and shelter for the night. I invited him in, offered food and water, prepared his bed, and he slept. The next day, he did not speak or leave the house. I respected and reciprocated his silence. Estimating his appetite, I put aside 3 meals and I kept some music playing throughout the day. And so it was spent. The next day, I thought he must be getting ready to leave. I made him a cup of coffee, made another one for me, and sat next to him at the dinner table. I never got to know you, I said. Assuming he did not hear me, I said it again. I am a bird, he replied. I thought this response was rather bizarre, but I composed myself and said, You don't seem to have a beak or wings or feathers. He sat quietly for a while. Such specifications are no longer relevant, he said, sipping at his finjan. I am a migratory bird from beyond the sea. The moment he said that, he started to get on my nerves. I asked him if he wished to prolong his stay in my house. Yes, he replied. On the 4th day, signs of good health were appearing on my guest's face. He came out of his bedroom asking, Where is the post office in your city? I asked him what he needed from the post office, and he said, I want to send an application for my wife and kids so they can come stay here with me. But you have seen nothing of the city yet, I said. No matter, he said. We already know the city from our geography books. That was the first time my guest used the collective we instead of I. I could not conceal my nerves any longer. If seeing the city doesn't matter, I snapped, what does? What matters is your apartment. It's comfortable and it provides all the amenities we need for our stay. But it is my apartment and the amenities are mine. The man let out a long laugh. Without as much as a word of reply, he retreated to his room. He came out dressed a few moments later. Before leaving the house, he asked if I intended to stay. I told him I was staying. In any case, he said, if you ever wish to go out, do not worry about me. In the bedroom, I found the key to the front door and made a copy. He left me dumbfounded, racking my brains over how I might get rid of this nesting bird who decided to impose his existence upon my house for many days. On the 5th day, I asked him to leave the house. He laughed his long laugh again. On the 6th day, I repeated my request. If you say such things again, he shouted in my face, I will bash your head in. I said the same thing on the 7th day. He pulled out a gun from his pocket and loaded it with bullets. I will forgive you this time, he said, because you're unaware that I am a co-tenant on our lease. I ran to my folder of official documents like a wild hare and dug out my copy of the lease. Here's the lease with my name alone. My copy, however, says we're co-tenants, he said with the pomp of a peacock. From that moment, we were partners in all that concerned the house. I mean, my house, until his family arrived. He asked if I wouldn't mind letting him and the family stay alone, since the house could no longer accommodate everyone. But we're co-tenants, I said. Co-tenants, according to your copy of the lease. Not at all, he said. The lease is in my name only, and I can prove it in court. But instead of standing before a jury, he pulled out his gun again and ordered me to leave immediately. So I left and handed my case over to my lawyers. Last I heard, they were about to win a court ruling in favor of my right to stay. But the court has drowned me in paperwork and procedures, and I am still locked out of my house. That was Fakhri Qawar. As an end note, my passion project for the last few years has been putting together the first comprehensive English translation of his short stories, which grew out of my MFA thesis. I have yet to find a US-based publisher, so if there are any in the audience, do hit me up. And next, I I want to read a poem by my dear friend Yahya Ashur. And I want to thank WIAM for centering not only Palestinian voices, but those from Gaza. I first got to know and started translating Yahya when he was here in Iowa City for 3 months doing a residency at the International Writing Program. He was born and raised in Gaza. And in September of 2023, he was on a speaking tour in the US and obviously was never able to return to Gaza. He's been in the US ever since. I think he's teaching now in California. The poem I will read to you is an example of his earlier work. I say earlier, he is only 27, but he writes with the maturity of a poet who has witnessed centuries. It's called When a Missile Lands, and it was published in the Spring 24 issue of Arab Lit Quarterly. When a missile lands by my house, I hope that in its haste it can see that I have long braced myself in a grave dug by fear and not a bed. When the missile lands, I say, finally, death has come. But death, to my luck, shuns the ones most ready to die. And as an end note to that, I will say that Yahya's most recent work, a book titled A Gaza of Siege and Genocide, is out from Mizna, who is one of the sponsors of these readings. You can find Yahya's book on the Mizna website. It's an incredibly important work, and all the proceeds will go to helping Yahya's family survive the genocide. So that's all from me. Thank you, and over to you, Rewa.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Khalid. So many thanks for also, highlighting the work of Fakhri Kawar and Yahya Ashur for sure. Important voices and really just that was such a heartbreaking story by Fakhri Kawar. Thank you for sharing that. And I just wanted to shout out for Arab Lit Quarterly, just like the important work that they're doing, edited by Marsha Links Quayle. And also your work is published there. Yahya's work is published there, and many important voices. So thank you for all the work that you're doing. Our next reader is Farah Barqawi. I'd love to introduce Farah. Farah is a Palestinian writer, educator, performer, and feminist organizer. She works across multiple genres and mediums, from written words to podcasts, singing, and theatrical performances. Her poetry and prose have appeared in multiple languages, both online and in print. She created and performed a solo theatrical piece, Baba, Come to Me, which she toured for 2 years. She also produced and hosted a season of the Arabic podcast Aib, which means shame, in 2019. She co-founded 2 permanent feminist initiatives in the Arabic-speaking world, Wikigender and the Uprising of Women in the Arab World. She holds a master's degree in public policy from the University of Chicago and an MFA in creative nonfiction writing from New York University, where she also taught creative writing to undergrads. Farah lives in New York City, where she strives to connect with her communities and get involved in the causes that she is passionate about. Thank you for being here and joining us, Farah.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rewa, for this invitation, and thanks to my fellow readers and translators. I'm very glad to be amongst you. I find it, I'm not here in the wearing the hat of a translator somehow, because I'm going to read part of my work that was translated, and I will honor some translators also who worked with me over the last 2 years, translating my mother's journals, dispatches from Gaza City. So I am a Palestinian writer and translator, as Rewa introduced me. And both of my parents are still in Palestine. My mother lives in Gaza City, still in Gaza City, standing the genocide. And my father lives in Ramallah, where unfortunately, also recently, not very recently, but the last few months have been really getting harsher and harsher on our families in the West Bank. Let me start by reading something by my mother, so that I honor that first. It was written on day 25 of the war, which was a war then considered still like the genocide on Gaza, October 31st, 2023. This text is translated by my dear friend and translator, Zainab Magdi. To our attackers, let us be. You've taken your share of our blood, so stop killing us. Morning broke today, but we do not feel it is a new day, as the sky is matted with clouds from the smoke of fires that blocks the sunlight from reaching us. Yesterday, we lived through a night that did not differ much from the night before, a night that is not distinguishable from others except by the larger number of missiles and rockets from sky, sea, and land. With these, the number of martyrs increased when it had already exceeded 8,000 martyrs. The number of the missing is almost 2,000, and the wounded 21,000 citizens. As for me, yesterday was very different in every single way since the afternoon until the early evening. Different feelings brewed within me: grief, fear, and worry. A deep sadness squeezed my heart as I did not know how to break the news that had reached me to my friend that her family home was completely destroyed by Israeli bombs. A true massacre had taken place. 12 members of her family were martyred: her uncle and his wife, his daughter and his daughter in law, along with 3 girls and a boy, his grandchildren, and the wife of another uncle and 3 of her daughters. 4 others have been wounded. One of them is her cousin, who survived the bombing only to suffer the news that her 3-year-old daughter had been martyred, the daughter she was able to conceive after 6 painful years through IVF. 4 hours passed as I fought my feelings of fear and worry about her reaction when the news reaches her. How will I tell her this painful news? How do I begin to tell her? Do I begin by reassuring her that her parents and siblings were outside the house when the destructive missile fell? Do I tell her that other members of her family have escaped this death as they were by chance standing in the bakery line to get their daily share of bread? But I knew that this would not be enough to lessen her grieving, as she had a strong bond with her uncle and the rest of the family, a bond similar to her bond with her parents. I hurried to tell my daughter, who lives far away from me, the news of my friend losing members of her family. Telling my daughter made the weight clamped on my chest a little lighter. I mustered up some courage, and with the aid of verses from the Quran that are said in such situations, I shared the news with my friend. In all honesty, I cannot describe her pain and her grief that filled the air, and how her tears flowed hot in silence as she stared in disbelief, listening to the news I bore. I held her and felt her heart tremble. She almost choked on her silence, and I rushed to get her some water down the wreckage of her throat. I wish this upon no one, to be in this situation, neither to receive the news of the loss of a loved one, nor to have to tell another of the loss of someone they love. These criminals have taken too much of our blood, flesh, and bones. Isn't it enough? Will this war not end? I was awake all night, touching and checking on my body and the bodies of my friends' children to make sure that we were still alive. I shook with every missile and every loud explosion and every shake of the building. After every strike on Gaza, I would get up to move around the house, checking the windows and the doors, then turn on the radio so that I might hear some news that would assure me that the bombing was far from us, that the bombing was nowhere near any one of our loved ones or anyone we knew. Maybe there is yet hope for us to come out of this horror, neither having lost nor being missing. Zainab al-Ghunaimi, From Gaza Under Bombardment, translated by Zainab Magdi. These daily dispatches continued until the ceasefire that unfortunately was broken on March 18th. And my mother didn't write since that date, since the end of the first batch of the war, basically. It was really tiring, I think, to stop and to remuster the courage to write again and to document like a repetition of the genocide. That mentioned, I'd love to honor all the friends and colleagues who helped me translate her words into English. I used to edit the Arabic, and they would take shifts voluntarily to do this. Zainab Magdi, Catherine Hall, Sarah Al-Kamel, Sarah Al-Shoufi, Yumna Abdel Jawad, Weam Tamami, and Alia Sabah, and others that I might have forgotten, Yasmin Haj. Many of them are translators as well, and they took of their time to do this mission on a harried daily pace, basically. So I'm very, very grateful for this support, really, and solidarity and like effort. I'll move now to my work, some work I've written during like a couple of poems that I wrote during the genocide. One of them is my own translation. It's called, I'll read it in Arabic and English. بعد المجزرة. بعد المجزرة إن ظل لي شيء بعد المجزرة سأكتفي بالحب والغضب. سأرعى من أحب حد الموت ولن أسامح من خذل حتى الموت. After the massacre, if I have anything left after the massacre, I will make do with love and anger. I'll cherish the ones I love to death, and I won't forgive the ones who betrayed until death. That one was my own translation. The next one is called Pulse, and it's translated by Sarah Al-Kamel into English. كيف للقلب أن يتسع لكل هذا الضيق؟ كيف للقلب أن يخفق وسط الضلوع المعقوفة على نفسها؟ كيف للقلب أن ينبض نيابة عن كل شهداء بلادي وعن وطني الذي يصر أعدائي على قتله؟ إن هذا القلب قلبي في الخارج، قلب أمي في الداخل، وقلب كل فلسطينية وفلسطيني أينما كانوا، ليس مجرد عضلة أتعبتها التمارين القاسية في البقاء والفقد ثم البقاء والفقد، قلوبنا ساحات تكبر كل يوم، هائجة كالمتوسط، مالحة كآبار مياه غزة، عنيدة أكثر مما نرغب أحيانا. قلوبنا لها حيوات تعيشها رغما عنا، قلوبنا تشاغبنا بالشغف والشهوة حتى، بينما تتمرجح بين الخوف والأمل. داخل قلبي حديقة منزلي الذي سأبنيه يوما في فلسطين، وداخل قلبي شواهد قبور من فقدناهم، وبداخله أيضا أغانٍ وأشعار وأحلام وخيالات الأسلاف وحكايا الأطفال وحب كثير، صداقات تسند الروح وقت الألم وتسند الظهر في محاولات الوقوف المستمر دون انكسار. This was written on day 24 of the genocide. Pulse translated by Sarah Al-Kamel. How can the heart make room for all this constriction? How can the heart continue to function behind braided limbs? How can the heart beat on behalf of all my country's martyrs and my homeland, which my enemies insist on murdering? But this heart, mine on the outside, my mother's on the inside, and the heart of every Palestinian woman and man, wherever they are, is not a mere muscle worn out by the strenuous exercise of survival and loss after survival and loss. Our hearts are squares that grow daily, as feral as the Mediterranean, as saline as the wells of Gaza, headstrong to a fault. Our hearts have lives they live in spite of us. Our hearts taunt us with their vigor, their lust, and they flutter between fear and hope. Inside my heart is the garden of the house I will one day build in Palestine. And inside my heart are the headstones of our dead, songs and poems, dreams, and the ancestors' daydreams, and the stories of children, and abundance of love, friendships that keep the soul upright when the pain arrives, and keep the spine upright in constant attempts to stand without surrender. I think the last thing I would have loved to read several works by several translators who worked on my work, but there is not a lot of time at the moment left, so I'll maybe I will link some of my work later, but let me read one last poem in Arabic also, and then in English. This poem is translated by Catherine Halls. سؤال العودة. كيف يعود الناس من الحرب؟ كيف يعودون من النيران، من الأغلال، من الأعضاء المبتورة، من بطن الحوت الجائع؟ كيف يعودون؟ كيف يعود الناس من القهر، من العتمة، من الأحلام المسروقة إلى الأحلام؟ كيف يعودون؟ كيف يعودون من الخوف من الموت، من الفقد إلى الخوف من الحياة، إلى الحياة؟ كيف يعودون؟ كيف يعودون من الشعر، من الحب، من الهزيمة في الحب إلى هزيمة أخرى، ثم إلى حضن الحب ثانية؟ كيف يعودون؟ كيف يعود الناس من الإلحاد إلى الإيمان؟ كيف يعودون من العجلات إلى الخطوات؟ كيف يعودون من الأقبية إلى الشطآن؟ كيف يعودون من الخرس إلى الكلمات؟ كيف يعودون من الأبنية إلى الساحات؟ ومن ثم كيف يعود الناس إلى النور من الإنكار؟ كيف يعودون إلى الفن من جشع الإنتاج؟ كيف يعودون إلى العلم من شاشات الإعلام؟ وحقا بعد كل هذا كيف يعودون إلى أنفسهم؟ كيف يعودون؟ The question of return. How do people return from war? How do they return from fires, from shackles and chains, from severed limbs, from the belly of the ravening whale? How do they return? How do people return from being broken, from darkness, from stolen dreams to dreams? How do they return? How do they return from fear of death, of loss, to fear of life, to life? How do they return? How do they return from poetry, from love, from the defeat in love to another defeat, then love's embrace again? How do they return? How do people return from unbelief to faith, wheels to footsteps, tunnels to riverbanks, muteness to words, buildings to open fields? Then again, how is it that people return to light from denial? How? To art from the hunger to produce? How? To insight from TV screens? And how, after everything, do they return to themselves? This was translated by Catherine Halls and is published in the International Poetry Anthology, the issue for Palestine. Thank you, everyone, and thanks to all my cherished fellow translators here in the session, and to my very own translators of my work. One of them is Weam, who translated a very, very, very important text that documents the life and death of my dearest cousin, Dua, and that hopefully soon also will be published. So I join the call of Khaled. If anyone in the audience is willing to take our work to pages, we're all happy to do so.
Thank you, Farah. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Wonderful, wonderful work. Please do send the links so that we can have them in the chat for sure. And I invite Khalid to do the same as well. And Taman, we am. I just have to say, I've been sitting here like trying not to like have a meltdown. When I heard you read in Arabic, it just hits differently. يعني ما بعرف شو بدي أقول لك. Every sentence is just beautiful. Like قلوبنا ساحات تكبر كل يوم. I just like wrote that down, and it's just so beautiful and so real. So يعطيك العافية, and thank you for all the translators' work as well. I also want to just remind people that we are, of course, raising funds for PCRF and Palestine Legal to please donate and support. And we support you, Farah. We support you, Khalid. We support you, Julia, and we am, and we'll keep doing more and more of this work. So it's not just like one time. I know you have a lot to share, and we want to keep supporting and sharing this really important work. So thank you. I'm going to be inviting, last but not least, Julia Shukher Visoso is an independent scholar and seasonal translator. She calls on you to refuse and resist the Israel-US genocide of the Palestinian people and destruction of Lebanon, wherever and however you can. Find her work at abolishship.org/JCB. Thank you, Julia, and welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Dua, and thank you to everyone at the Arab American National Museum for the invitation. And thank you so much, Weam and Khalid and Farah, for your work and for your words. I am deeply, deeply honored to be sharing this space with you. I don't know how we will return from war to invoke Farah, but this is one way that I find that I can truly be myself amid war. I will be reading some of my translations of the writings by Hiba al-Agha. Hiba describes herself as a Palestinian mother and Hakawati, a storyteller. She's a creative writing educator at the Qattan Foundation in Gaza, where she trains children in creative writing. I'll add that she's a poet, though I have never heard her call herself that. I first came across Hiba's writings on the third week of the genocide, towards the end of October 2023, when I saw a series of posts that were summarizing a text called Al-Dhakira al-Hamida, a sour memory. And I was gripped immediately, and I spent the next few weeks trying to connect with her. And when I finally did, it was one of those instant connections. Hiba is a force of nature. We share a bitter sense of humor. And it's been such a privilege to become her friend as well as one of her translators. I will start by reading A Sour Memory, the text through which Hiba and I met. It was published last year in this last spring in this beautiful edition of the Arab Lit Quarterly, Gaza, 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 which has already been mentioned tonight by Khalid. It's the same issue where his translation of Yahya Ashur's poem appears. I also want to join Marsha in the shout out to Marsha. I want to join Rewa in the shout out to Marsha Links Kweli at Arab Lit, because she's been such a generous supporter of Hiba's and of my work, and being in community with her has brought me so much joy. A Sour Memory by Hiba Al-Agha. I squeeze my memory like a sour lemon, chewing what is left of my mind. I move from death to death, concealing my sadness under my clothes, like an old woman with pride. Who will give Gaza their blood so she can live? Who will quench the thirst of a city drowning in its children's blood? I purify myself with the portraits of the martyrs, praying for them one last time. To a mass grave of the unidentified. No photos, no posters, no solemn funerals, no time for press reports where a mother relates the qualities of her martyr. She dies with him, and the journalist dies too. My memory tastes sour, a mix of images and scenes that have stripped October of its dreamy autumn and laid bare the whole world. October has exposed all the shame of the world. As for our shames, they are under the rubble, shielded by God and our rescuers, by the bodies of parents. My daily memory tastes sour, erasing the contours of my home, of my diaries. The days piled on like bombs. I nearly explode in them, or they explode in me. I drown in anger. I become it. The neighbors can hear my growl as it rises like smoke. From me, a woman who hates loud noises, and now I have become a loud noise. I arrange my migrating memory into little drawers, into Tupperware in the kitchen, inside bottles and detergent. How can I fold what remains of my life's details into my children's closet? And how do I collect them hurriedly into the getaway bag? How could I have left the coffee machine vulnerable to the dust and noise? How could we have left the window shut? The sour memory stings me. Days stretch out on hospital floors like martyrs, also meeting their end, departing with us into eternity. Days are our provisions in war. We fold them like socks, tucking them into each other so they don't get lost. We count them on our fingers. We see our wasted lives. Rushdie was martyred, like Ragad before him and Hamad before them. Death pulls them upward, even from under the rubble. Death opens its big mouth and doesn't shut it, swallowing up homes and everyone within. I will now read a very short poem that Hiba wrote the day that Al Jazeera journalist Ismail Al-Ghul and cameraman Rami Al-Rifi were killed by an Israeli air attack. This was on July 31st, 2024. for Ismail al-Ghul and Rami al-Rifi by Hiba al-Agha. No grief to bear in the city, no wall to weep on, no helmet, no armor to carry us, all too heavy for our bodies, no friendly ally to panic, to see how quickly people die here, nothing to keep us from death, but death itself. 10 days into the genocide, Hiba started sharing a diary on Telegram as she was forced to move with her family from their home in Gaza City to Khan Yunis and then to Rafah, and then as of May 2024 to Cairo. These are a few excerpts that I translated of these diaries arranged chronologically. October 17, 2023, Gaza City. Exodus to the south. We packed only 2 emergency suitcases, one with IDs, documents, and certificates, and the other with a few changes of clothes. It wasn't easy compressing your life into a suitcase, but these are the things we have to do. On Friday night, the streets were crowded with displaced people from other parts of Gaza. We tried to sleep after an agonizing day. Warplanes had bombed the home of some relatives in Khan Yunis, neighbors of my parents. We wept for Mhannad, for his siblings, his mother and father. That night, we made a lot of sandwiches for those displaced in our building. It was, as they say, the Last Supper. In the middle of the night, rumors started to circulate as everyone exchanged messages about orders to evacuate Gaza City. We ignored them, we doubted their veracity, we exhausted every possible discussion topic, and then we tried to get some sleep. In the morning, we found out that the rumors were true. Messages had continued to circulate, and they were confirmed when we watched the officer on television order Gaza residents to evacuate within 24 hours. I found myself weeping bitterly, in disbelief. How could we possibly make the decision to stay or to leave? How could we leave our house, our city? We emptied suitcases of textbooks and notebooks and coloring books and replaced them with underwear, with one change of clothes and a towel. I crammed as much as I could into each bag. I was looking around the house, crying, and then cramming in some more. We don't own large suitcases. I haven't traveled since 2014, my husband since 2008 when he finished his studies in Egypt. We used what bags we had and gathered what mementos we could. Photo albums, a favorite pillow, toys, dolls, Yara's sketchbook, Kamel's sports uniform. I packed my Quran, my laptop, the novel I Saw Ramallah, and the signed copy of Ahlam's an autobiography of taste. Do we really have to leave right now? And what will the journey be like? Will we be safe? I hear them calling me from downstairs. Everyone is waiting. I try to delay as long as possible. The sound of explosions is continuous. Fear gets the better of us. We hug, we pray, we ask God for forgiveness. We bid farewell to the relatives starting to scatter. We take the road of fear and tears, waving goodbye to our house as we head south. November 1st, 2023, Khan Yunis. Death lies next to us every night, but stays alert, waiting for the signal. We wake up to a miracle. We've thwarted death as well as sleep. Time overtakes us from every side, from above. Daytime takes it all in, agitated and distressed. We no longer fear death. We have come to fear life. We are living a forbidden life. Our dreams dangle from bombed roofs, from shattered glass and ruins, from the remains of our miraculous life. Gaza lays siege to this miserable, sick world, besieges it so it can't eat, drink, or sleep. Gaza lies on its broken stone, resting on the shoulders of its children. Gaza leans on its slow death to live. December 19, 2023, Rafah. I feel empty, barren, trapped inside stolen time. I'm filling my head with repetitive news and repetitive images with the saddest voices in the world. I practice the perfect reaction for when my family dies. If I survive, that is. The days run us over like trucks that don't kill us. We duck between the wheels to survive one more day, which is always harsher, always colder than the day before. The worst part is how the displaced person dies a cold, ordinary death, far away from home, in an unfamiliar city that doesn't resemble them. But that is death, the absent present, suspended in midair, allowing us to live until the end of the year. December 20, 2023, Rafah. I walk the streets of Rafah alone in my prayer clothes, holding a cloth bag with today's bread. I no longer care what I look like. As I walk back to our room, I think about how much I used to care about style, about my jeans and my colorful shirts and my favorite bags and the white shoes I had gotten into lately. I think about how we didn't pack any winter clothes and couldn't find any to buy, and how my sister lent me a warm robe to wear on my latest exodus. I try to enjoy the fleeting moments, like when I look at the faces of passersby or meet new people, or when I learn new words and recipes. I take in the streets, the markets that have never been so crowded, the many homes we have stayed in. Even when we had to stay on the street, we turned it into a sidewalk picnic. Language feels shallow and antiquated. Idioms are as salty as the water we are drinking. There is no place for luxurious speech or embellished prose. The martyrs do not read our words. The wounded are too tired. Maybe the only reader these days is someone who has been displaced like me, or a friend abroad who reads in solidarity. They are not concerned with craft, only with the content of our writing. Maybe they wonder how we are able to write amid every obstacle to life. The truth is, I'm only an amateur writer. I do not belong to any writers' unions, and I've not published any literary books. But I work with an army of young writers and have trained my children in freedom and told them that writing is power. We cannot surrender this magic wand. We have no choice but to exist. December 25, 2023, Rafah. The word displacement haunts me. It comes at me through cold windows, on scary nights, from the moaning of the little ones when they get sick. It catches me off guard if I'm laughing or distracted. It curls up in suitcases. It spills into empty water bottles. It sticks to our feet as they tire in search of tissues or a can of oil. It hops onto carts and buses that we catch rides in. It rides along in our car with every new exodus. That is the only time we use the car, to preserve what's left of its gas. How do the homes bear our absence? The homes we left behind are not made of ordinary walls. They're our bodies, our flesh, our memories, our anger, and our joy. They are men, women, children, the family portrait hanging on the wall. These days, our homes are asleep on top of one another. No doors, no windows, no embraces at the front door, no flower pots or trees. The elegant ones, the ones with the paved driveways, have lost all their features. Those that had gardens are now buried in them. Not much family is left in these homes. A grandson sent, a paternal aunt, half a maternal aunt, a grandmother's remains. The war has taken them all, neighbors included, leaving a single witness behind who will join them later. Widows are no more, nor mothers of martyrs. They are no longer in fashion in Gaza, where we now mourn a family in its entirety. We review the civil registry and highlight all their names in red, a black mark against humanity. May 31st, 2024, Cairo. This morning, Hannah sent me this photo from the beloved city of Khan Yunis. Looking is painful. Such destruction makes you very small. It shrinks you. It wounds you. It robs you of all forbearance. The nothingness makes you lose your balance. How could anyone look at the scene this passionately and carry on? Where would such callousness come from? Nothing is left on this earth to sustain life. Nothing to help you live, to complete you, even if you are the only one who deserves to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you so much. I've been frantically writing just every sentence. I can just note down every just wonderful sentence that was shared. October has indeed exposed all the shame in the world. It's yeah. How do the homes bear our absence? And more importantly for all of us, writing is power. We cannot surrender this magic wound and this magic wand. Well, wound also, you know, right? That works too. We have no choice but to exist. Absolutely. Thank you so much for all your words and all your work and solidarity and community. And I think, you know, this is words really do matter now more than ever. So thank you. And yeah, just we keep doing the good work. Thanks for everybody who attended tonight. And you know, we'll just keep supporting. The Arab American National Museum is here to support, you know, artists like yourself. And we're here. Our 20th anniversary is Beit Beitak. So basically, our home is your home. So please feel always that you can reach out to us. And again, we are raising funds always for PCRF and Palestine Legal. So also keeping that invite out for donations. ويعطيكم العافية. Thank you so much and have a good night. Stay well.
شكرا. Bye.
Bye bye.